Thresholds. We cross them every day, from room to room, from outside to inside, and back again. From here to there, from anywhere to everywhere, from age to age. Each threshold offers an opportunity for change, for renewal, for transformation, from what we were and what we are to what we can be. Judy Butler will light the chalice here in the sanctuary, and those of you at home are invited to light your own chalice now. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us and the community. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind our remote participants to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with as big and loud as you possibly can and make it a joyous experience for all. Please stand in body and or spirit and sing the opening hymn, Love Will Guide Us, number 131. Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. Our UUCC sanctuary sits on land that the Salinan and Chumash indigenous peoples historically inhabited. We honor their contribution to this region and give thanks for the opportunity to gather in faith on the unceded territory. Let us respect their legacy and protect their history as we occupy this sacred space. As Unitarian Universalists, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation run by the democratic process. We invite speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds, as well as community leaders, to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest that connect us with the UU7 principles and 6 values: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. Today's service centers around the first principle: we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. My name is Diane DeMarco, and I am your worship associate for this morning's service.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you joined us this morning. And if you wish, please raise your hand if you'd like to introduce yourself or your guest. Okay. If you are not on the mailing list, please visit the UUCC website at uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all of our activities. Members and friends, please check out What's Happening, the e-blast sent to you every week. This is a great way to keep up to date with our latest news. And if you wish to see this or any other past Zoom services, the recordings can be found on the UUCC website and on Facebook. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. The affirmation is both a recognition of the nature of this community as well as a promise to which we aspire. Let us now recite the UUCC affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for brief announcements that will be of interest to our community and friends. Please be succinct when announcing upcoming events or updates. And if you have an announcement, raise your hand, and when Ben or I call on you, come up to the podium or unmute yourself and then speak. Janet.
I'll just stand here, it's quick. The potluck this coming Saturday at my house at 5:30. Everybody's welcome.
In case you didn't hear that on Zoom, potluck 5:30 this Saturday. Dolores.
Hey, Andy, can you put the slide up? Apparently there's a slide. I didn't know that. There it is, Tuesday, October 15th, 3 to 5, game night right here in the afternoon, 3 to 5. Be here, bring your favorite game. That isn't too hard to learn.
Wayne.
GreenSpace is sponsoring a program next Sunday at St. Paul's Episcopal Church at 5 p.m. It's about the long history of California's anthropogenic landscapes, human influenced, and what the implications mean for the quality of humanity's continued residency here. 5 o'clock, and call ahead to GreenSpace to make a reservation because the seating is limited.
Wayne, wait a second. I just want to do your shoe.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's a full service.
No extra charge. Ben, do we have any announcements?
We have no announcements on Zoom.
Okay, any more in the sanctuary? Next week, John Loring will present A Sense of Place. Joys and Concerns is a time for sharing personal celebrations, sorrows, reflections, or gratitudes. This is a time for community building. Please exercise brevity. The collective flames of these candles embody all the joys and concerns which may have gone unspoken today, but are deeply felt in this community. The first reading is from 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Let us now join in the meditation of prayer and of silence. Let us seek the quiet and the calm, laying aside our struggles. And in the silence, may there be a reverence in our hearts, a thankfulness within our spirit, and a deepened understanding of the meaning of our lives. Let us enter the stillness. May today there be peace within. The second reading embodies two quotes. The first is an excerpt from The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, a 20th century American New Thought writer and teacher. The only way God can evolve a spontaneous individual is to let him alone and allow him to awaken to himself. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. So man must be created with the possibility of limitless freedom and let alone to discover himself. We must know definitely and consistently that the universe is for us and not against us. But some will say the universe is not for us. Look at the evil, the limitation, lack, and physical pain and anguish of the human race. We shall have to learn that evil is neither person, place, or thing of itself, but is an experience which we are allowed to have because of our divine individuality, until through negative experiences we learn to use the law affirmatively, to cooperate with it, and thus to enjoy its full benefits. The second reading is a quote by Rainer Maria Rilke, an Austrian poet and novelist during the turn of the 20th century. Once we accept that even between the closest human beings, infinite distances continue to exist, we can live wonderfully, wonderfully side by side. As long as we succeed in loving the distance between one another, each of us can see each other as whole against the sky. Please stand in body or spirit and sing Let It Be a Dance, number 311.
Let it be a dance we do.
Today's talk is titled The Power of Allowing in Relationships, to be delivered by Susan Jones. Susan Jones has been a student of New Thought for 30 years and is a licensed spiritual practitioner with Centers for Spiritual Living and a ministerial student with Emerson Theological Institute. She is retired from a career in the home building industry and as a foster parent for more than 25 years. Currently, she works part-time with San Luis Obispo Caregivers and serves on several committees at Awakening Ways Center for Spiritual Living in Atascadero. She and her husband, Larry, live in Atascadero with their pug, Ruby. Susan.
Good morning. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So typically, if I know that I'm going to do a talk, I have an idea of what I want to speak about, and I knew I wanted to speak about relationships, but I take a walk and I ask Spirit, what do you want me to say? And the message that I got loud and clear was, they're complicated. Now, I thought that was pretty funny because I know that nothing is complicated for Spirit, but us humans, boy, we can be complicated, right? So my husband has this Big Dogs shirt that has a message on the back that says, my wife says I don't listen to her, or something like that. Every time he wears that shirt, people stop us and they want to know where he got that shirt. And so, why is that? It's because it makes sense to a lot of people. It rings true for them, right? So in one of my ministerial classes, it was called Science and Religion, and our textbook was Biocentrism by Robert Lanza. Now, this book made my brain want to pack its bags and scoot right out my ear. But through patience and guidance from our teacher and group discussion, I was able to grasp the main idea of biocentrism, which is reality is not something out there that we are a minuscule part of, but rather reality is dependent on the observer, us. Reality exists only as potential. What? So here's what I mean. You know that the expression, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it make a sound? Well, biocentrism says, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, not only is there not a tree, there's no forest. So after my class where we were discussing this, I sat down with my husband and I told him what we were learning, especially the story about the tree falling in the forest. Now, the look on his face was what you might see if you're in the South when someone looks at you and says, well, bless your heart. It kind of means there's something wrong with you, right? He's like, okay, what? So I knew that he was thinking I was kind of nutty. And believe me, there's a lot of things I believe that he thinks are a little bit nutty. But the next day, when I was getting ready to go to the grocery store, I told him, I'm going to stop by the grocery store and then I'm going to stop over at the drugstore and then I'll be home. And he said, how do you know it's there? And I said, I don't. I guess I'll find out when I get there. Now, the reason I brought that up is that, Larry puts his love for me ahead of his, opinions about what it is that I think. David Rico, in his book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships, talks about the 5 A's, the keys to opening up. These are attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing. I got the chance to learn about the practice of allowing when I shared my life and my home with over 100 foster teenagers, not all at once. As any of you who have raised children know, there's a lot of things that you can't allow kids to do, things that could hurt themselves or others. So no is often the only option. But something I learned from those teenagers is that sometimes allowing something that you don't really agree with can honor your relationship. David Rico mentions this. He says some parents set rigid structures on eating, sleeping, clothing, and grooming, all to suit their own needs and standards, rationalizing that such structures are crucial to a child's health. In such a home, it might have felt unsafe to be ourselves. Can anyone relate to that? Yeah. So one of the things I used to do with my kids whenever I got a new one is we would go to the grocery store together and I would ask them, what do you love? Like, what are your foods? What things should we get for you? And most of the time it was the typical things you could imagine, ramen, boxed macaroni and cheese, things like that. But one time I was there with this young boy, 13 years old, and I said, what is your favorite food? And he said, Vienna sausages. Now, does anybody know about Vienna sausages? So if you know what they're made of, then you do not eat them, okay? They're like made out of parts of animals that we don't even want to think about, right? They come in a can. So when he said Vienna sausages, it threw me off. And I said to him, do you even know what's in those things? And he said, I don't care what's in them. I just love them. So we bought the sausages and took them home. And I just have to tell you that when he took that can and he popped that lid, it has a pop top on it, and he took a sniff, his little eyes rolled up in his head and he just like, he just turned into this little mush ball. And so to me, it wasn't about Vienna sausages at all. It was about allowing him to have this opportunity to go back to some great place in his mind. And it was worth every bit of ick that I had about Vienna sausages, you know? And it really taught me a thing or two. We had another girl who was 17, you know, which is pretty old. And when she moved in with us, she asked if we would take the bed frame out from under the mattress and box spring because she didn't want space under the bed. We said, yes, of course. We took the bed frame away. We had some kids who slept on the floor. Now, of course, everyone had a bed and bedding, but what we would find is that they were taking that bedding off and putting it on the floor. It's because they were used to sleeping on the floor where they lived before. One thing I learned about these kids is that conditions that I would think were horrifying, living conditions, let's say, were their comfort area. I remember taking a boy to a home. This was going to be a more full-time foster home for him. And we went through and there was, to me, it just looked beat up. The corners, there were no sharp corners. Everything was rubbed down and well worn, let's put it that way. There was dogs everywhere. And I was kind of horrified. I was sort of sitting there clenched up. And when we got in the car, I was trained enough to know not to say anything like, wow, that place was awful. So I just said, what do you think? And he said, I loved it. It reminds me of home. So we allow, right? We allow. Now, when our parents become older, we often assume that role of parenting our parents. The idea of allowing comes into play with those relationships too. When my own mother started to experience some cognitive decline, I found myself being really impatient with her. When she would say, you never come and see me, I would say, yes, I do. I was just there yesterday. What I didn't realize that I was just making her wrong and pointing out that her memory was declining. And I feel very sad about doing that. Now I work part-time for a caregiving company, and the owner has shared many stories with me of adult children with elderly parents treating them as if they were children, trying to control their eating, grooming, clothing, etc. The same things that David Rico talked about regarding little children. But the guy I work for has a very personal experience that he shares with his clients because his own mother has dementia. So he visits her regularly. And on one occasion, when he went to see her, she thought he was her brother. And so she addressed him with her brother's name. Now, what David did was he just rolled with it. He just sat down and had a conversation with her and asked her how she was doing, asked her what she was up to, what she had for breakfast. They had a beautiful conversation. Now, a son could be tempted to say, Mom, it's me, it's David, I'm your son. But he didn't do that because he knew there was no point in that. And he gave her this opportunity. He allowed her to have an experience with her brother. How beautiful is that? I mean, these are little things that we can do to make a huge difference in other people's lives. Now, if you talk to couples who have been together for 25 or more years and you ask them the secret to success in their relationships, here's what they'll say. Be friends with your partner. Do things that you enjoy together. Take time for a date night. And never go to bed mad, right? You've heard those before. But I have something to say about that last one. So when Larry and I were going to get married, Larry's my second husband, and I was 41 years old when Larry and I met. We went and met with the minister of the church that I was going to, and she sat us down and she said, is there anything about the other that is a concern or just something you want to bring up and talk about? And I said, oh yes, I have something. So whenever Larry and I have an argument, he picks up his keys and he gets in his truck and he drives away. And I don't like that. I'm standing in the driveway and I want to have this conversation. And I was pretty righteous with myself about that. She looked at me and she said, do you have any idea how much dignity he's bringing to your relationship by doing that? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, because when you're having an argument and there's thoughts of unkind, cruel words that you want to say, if you say them, they cut just like a knife. By grabbing his car keys and driving away, she said, does he come back? And I said, well, yes, every time. And she said, then what is the problem, right? So for me, I'm a talker and I wanted to talk things out, but by allowing Larry to take that space, he would come back, be in a totally different frame of mind. We would have a beautiful conversation. Maybe it was the next day. So my advice to you is that if you're not able to talk things out calmly by bedtime, go to bed. Just go to bed. Tomorrow is another day, and as we all know, things always look better in the light of day. So relationships are complicated, and one way to make them better is to allow. Allow the other person to be and think what they want. Allow dignity in your relationship by taking a time out if you're feeling like saying something hurtful. Allow time to be together to do something that you both enjoy. I'm not saying that you need to allow people in your life to do whatever they want. You have to have discernment and you have to have boundaries for yourself, for sure. What I mean about allowing is what David Richo calls creating a holding environment. He says a holding environment, the safe and reliable context of the 5 A's, is necessary for all growth, both psychological and spiritual. We are like kangaroos developing in a pouch. We experience being held within the womb, within the family, within a relationship, within support groups, within civic groups, and within spiritual communities. At every stage of our lifespan, our inner self requires the nurturance of loving people who are attuned to our feelings and responsive to our needs. Those who love us, understand us, and are available to us with attention, appreciation, acceptance, affection that we can feel. And by allowing, they make room for us to be who we are. One thing I learned early on in my foster parent career is that if you frame your requests to another by saying I instead of you, you're more likely to get what you want. For example, the same girl who asked us to take the bed frame away, we got her into our foster home because she was being kicked out of a group home for girls. Now, typically it goes the other way. You start in a foster home, and if you can't make it there, then you go to a group home. She was completely non-compliant in the group home. She didn't like the rules, and she didn't understand the rules, so she didn't follow the rules. When she came to live with us, we told her what our rules were based on our needs. So for instance, we said curfews at 10 o'clock because we need to get our sleep. First thing out of her mouth is, that makes total sense. Because we didn't say curfews at 10 o'clock because teenagers need their sleep, right? If we said that, she would say, no, I don't. I don't need my sleep. I'm fine. I need my sleep. And she said, makes sense to me. Everything that we asked of her was framed in that way. And she was actually the best kid. And she's still in my life. She's like 45 years old now. And she has a child of her own. She lives up in Colorado. And yeah, she was just an awesome kid, but she just didn't like arbitrary rules that made no sense to her. Now, even though I'm technically retired from full-time employment, I have taken on several part-time jobs that keep me pretty busy. Now, Larry is truly retired. He's living his best life, doing the things he loves to do on his own time schedule. And I'll be honest that sometimes as I'm heading out the door to work and I look over at him laughing at cat videos, I can be a little miffed, right? But I had to ask myself, are you miffed because he's not working as hard as you, or he's not being productive in your eyes? What's really going on here? And once I looked deeply into my own motives, I realized that what I really needed was help doing some of the stuff, the chores around the house. And so I sat down with him and told him that I needed help, and I asked him if he'd be willing to take up some more of the daily chores, especially keeping the floors vacuumed. And of course, he said yes, no problem. Now, when you ask somebody for help, be ready for that help to come in creative ways. Soon after our conversation, I arrived home to hear this whooshing sound, this whirring sound. And lo and behold, there was a little robot scurrying around our floors, cleaning the floors. Now, when you ask for help, allow the other person to be creative in how they solve your problem. It was an absolutely genius idea, and it works perfectly. Now, this is all great advice for relationships with others, but what about your relationship with yourself, our relationships with ourselves? That can be very complicated. How many of you feel that the most critical person in your life is you? How often do we second guess ourselves, blame ourselves, and mistrust our own motives? What words do we use about ourselves? I'm not good with technology. I can't sing. I'm clumsy. We use that I word and then we say something really negative. I know that I do that, and I'm not alone. We need to apply the idea of allowing to ourselves. Allow yourself to make mistakes, say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, without adding self-condemnation on top of it. Claim what's good about yourself. Don't ever forget that you are a spiritual being, and yes, you are having a human experience. But in the core of your being, you are divine love. You are divine light. You are divine wisdom, and so much more. Over these weeks, thinking about this talk, I've been asking myself, so why did Spirit say to me relationships are complicated? Here's the point. Nothing is complicated about God's relationship with us. Nothing. Spirit loves us and supports us no matter what. And boy, does it allow. We are allowed by Spirit to make decisions and to take actions that are not in our highest good, and to experience the consequences of those decisions. Sometimes those consequences come as a gentle nudge, and if we don't learn from that, we might experience what's known as the cosmic 2x4. Spirit wants us to know that the only complication that exists between us and the God of our understanding is our own bloated nothingness, our human tendency to try to control everything. But the good news here is that in our relationship with Spirit, there's only one person complicating it, and that is us. Once you accept Spirit's unconditional love, you will begin to notice how many times it shows up and supports you in matters great and small. We talk about the power of prayer, and just as Spirit allows us to make our decisions and choices, we must allow God to do what God does. The more we allow, the faster the healing will come. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, said it perfectly. If prayer has been answered, it's not because God has been moved to answer one man and not another. It's because one man, more than another, has moved himself into a right relationship with Spirit, getting into alignment with that energetic presence. I chose the quote that was read earlier today from Rainier Maria Rilke because it beautifully captures the power of allowing. I'm going to read it again. Once we accept that even between the closest human beings, infinite distances continue to exist, we can live wonderfully side by side. As long as we succeed in loving the distance between one another, each of us can see each other as whole against the sky. Just take a moment and breathe that in. It's so beautiful. It's about honoring and allowing. So I'd like to conclude this talk with a call to action for the coming week. Number 1, lighten up in your relationships and allow people to be who they are. Say yes to the Vienna sausages or whatever else brings comfort to another. Remember your own divinity and honor it by releasing self-criticism and judgment. And finally, know that your relationship with Spirit is only as complicated as you make it. Just as Spirit allows you to make choices, you must allow Spirit to live and move and have its being through you. It's not complicated at all. Namaste.
Thank you, Susan. That was just great. The morning offering will now be given and received. Please remember, we are a self-sustaining congregation and provide all financial resources for our many ministries. We recognize the spiritual value of generosity, and we invite you to participate. If you are viewing this service remotely, please use one of the methods shown on the screen. Thank you. That was beautiful. Our thanks for all gifts received and for the work of this community. Please stand in body or spirit and sing the closing hymn, Answering the Call of Love, number 1014.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
As we prepare to extinguish the chalice, let us recite the valediction. The flame of this chalice will no longer burn today, but the light of the flame within our hearts continues to shine brightly, illuminating the love felt in our community. Please extinguish your chalice at home now. Now let's form a circle and join hands.
Oh, this is so awesome. This is so awesome. All right, beloveds, let's take a deep breath, okay? Oh, in this moment, I am so grateful for everything that has occurred here today, for every soul that has walked through this threshold, for every soul that has tuned in via Zoom. Grateful for the love and the light and the energy, the vibration of goodness in each and every one. I know that the truth of allowing is really love. It all boils down to that. And so I know that for each and every one of us, as we leave this place, as we go about the rest of our day, we take this energy of love and allowing with us, and we just shine it on everyone, from our loved ones to the clerk at the store that we don't even know. We just shine that love light on them. And I am so grateful for this. And so I just release this prayer with a heart filled with love. And together we say, and so it is.
And so it is. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure.